Joining us now, constitutional law expert and attorney Seth Berenzweig. Seth, this dynamic of state to state is one to be watching because every state's going to have its own specific rules. I just went through the ones in Missouri.
Absolutely, and we're really witnessing history today. This is the most impactful decision issued by the Supreme Court in decades. And with the press of a button, the Supreme Court has now wiped out roughly a half a century of precedent. This is going to have a very sprawling effect with immediacy today. Not only do you have this historic decision that has been issued here in Washington, D.C., but this is going to immediately flow down to the states. There are 13 states that have so-called trigger laws. As you are covering, the breaking news is demonstrating that those states are immediately jumping in and making it clear that those are coming into effect. The other thing that I think is another aspect that hasn't quite yet been covered relates to the impact on corporate America. One of the things that's going to be a brand new question, and this is something that we're starting to see through the breaking news this morning, is the question of how are employers going to be addressing this? Some significant employers have issued determinations that they're going to add to their list of health benefits for their employees travel expenses related to helping their female employees travel to a place where they are going to be able to have their reproductive decisions not criminalized. So not only are we going to see a very impactful change, not only in the federal and at the state level, but I think there's going to be a lot of discussions within companies and their HR departments about how they're going to handle this whole new world.
Seth, stay with us momentarily. I want to update our viewers on the plan ahead. I mentioned Republican leaders to speak in Washington, a group of them at noon. We've just gotten word from the White House that the president will deliver remarks on the Supreme Court decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health to overturn Roe v. Wade. That coming at 12:30 Eastern Time, 12:30 Washington time, so about an hour and 11 minutes from now. Again, live coverage here on CNBC. Seth Berenzweig, we have heard from some states where even if you drive someone to have an abortion, even you could be prosecuted. Are we expecting in some of the more conservative states, some of the states where this has been an issue for decades and decades and a heavy push, that there might be things like that where we could run into an area of unintended consequences?
Well, absolutely. We already know that there are certain terms and provisions under state laws, including some trigger laws, that are literally coming into effect any moment today, such as the proclamation that was just issued by letter and announced a few moments ago, where there's going to be widespread criminal liability, not only with respect to the healthcare provider, but, for example, if somebody takes a taxi, if somebody takes an Uber or a Lyft, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to be dragged into a courtroom? Are they going to be faced with the jail sentence? So there's a lot of implications to this. Keep also in mind the opinion by Justice Thomas. He has said that although the decision today is specifically with respect to abortion, that they're going to, and he certainly is going to take the lead, in opening the door to reconsideration of other issues that arise for due process under the 14th Amendment. That's the exact legal pinpoint of where this decision was issued. The basis of the overturning of Roe and Casey is premised upon the right to due process under the 14th Amendment. So what Justice Thomas is saying is that we have criminalization potentials with respect to things that are happening throughout the United States today. But as they say, stay tuned, because there's going to be a lot of activity happening. Their trigger laws are coming into effect, and it's going to be unclear as to what the broad-reaching implications will be.
There's also this matter of privacy, because so much of this had been historically put under at least partially under the privacy umbrella.
Correct. Roe had it pegged as a constitutional right of privacy. The court in Casey, in supporting Roe, reiterated it as a right of liberty, but it was still encased within the same fundamental right. And now what the Supreme Court has done today is it said that regardless of any of the flow of precedent that has emanated from Roe versus Wade, in one press of a button and in one fell swoop, it's entirely overruled. So all of those rights that are set forth under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment have now been eviscerated. And as Justice Thomas has said, we'll just have to wait and see what happens, because you can guarantee that there'll be other petitions for review on many other issues that will now be filed here in Washington with the Supreme Court.
Before we go to lift the veil just a little bit, are there law firms and advocacy groups across the country that are working to bring suits to the table now that we're in this moment of uncertainty and change?
Well, absolutely. There are public interest groups that are based throughout the country. They are not only gearing up to prosecute those claims on both sides of the legal equation, but they are also working with state legislators, because to the extent that you have states that don't have trigger laws, they're also going to become quite active. So you're going to have more activity with firms. You're going to have more litigation, particularly at the state level, litigating not only federal constitutional issues, but state constitutional issues as well. So everything has changed. We're really living in a whole fundamentally different world than what we saw yesterday.
Seth Berenzweig, thanks so much. Appreciate your time and analysis this morning.